So a couple of years ago on the Colbert Report, Stephen Colbert was interviewing a congressman from Georgia named Lynn Westmoreland, who had sponsored a bill to put the Ten Commandments up in the House of Representatives. He says, "Why is that important to you?" And Westmoreland says, "Well, the Ten Commandments is not a bad thing for people to understand and respect." "I'm with you," Colbert responds. And the congressman goes on, "Where better place would you have something like that than a judicial building courthouse?" And Colbert says, "Right, where better place could there be for that than a public building?" "No," he says, "I think if we were totally without them, we may lose a sense of our direction." "What are the commandments?" Colbert says. "What are all of them?" "Yes." "You want me to name them?" "Yes, that's it." Let's see, don't murder, don't lie, don't steal. I can't name them all. Right. I don't want you all to be caught in that position. In case you're ever a representative from Texas. So I'm doing a sermon series on the Ten Commandments. And as I told you all the last time I told you about this sermon series, you're going to have to trust me. Because Bible preaching is very hard on Unitarian Universalists. But I swear to you that I will not once tell you what you need to believe or tell you you're going to hell. The whole universalist part of Unitarian Universalists means no hell, so just relax if you haven't already. You know, the Ten Commandments are held as a faith story by all the Abrahamic religions, which are Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Those are three related religions that trace themselves back to Muhammad, and the story of the Ten Commandments is important in all three religions. The story is found both in Deuteronomy and in Exodus. The Hebrew people followed Moses out of Egypt. That coming out is called an Exodus, and that's what that whole book is named after, the coming out from Egypt. And they traveled through the Sinai Peninsula till they got to Mount Sinai, named after the peninsula, to the land of Canaan, which they thought in their faith was promised to them by God. And Moses left the people down at the bottom. They had to do some clothes washing and some celibacy and some other ceremonial stuff to get ready to receive a word from God. And Moses went up on the mountain, and God said, "I'm going to talk to you in a voice that people can hear so they'll know that I'm talking to you." And they said there was fire and smoke and the sound of a loud trumpet as God spoke to Moses. And my ex-father-in-law said that that was the spaceship that came down. And so some people believe that. Moses came down. It took him a long time. So the people were fretting because he was, really taking a while. So they had built this golden calf statue, and they started to dance around it and party very hard. And Aaron, Moses' brother, was letting them do this. Moses came down with the commandments, and he saw the people dancing around and partying and laid out drunk all over the place. And he got mad and threw the commandments on the ground, ground them up, put them in the water, made the people drink them. About 6,000 people were killed in that whole episode. And then he went back up and got them again and came back down with 2 more tablets. So those were the 10 commandments. There are actually many, many commandments, 690 something. But these 10 were the ones that were always recited. And when people started taking them with more weight than the others, the Jewish people stopped the recitation of the 10 because they were making them too important and making the other ones like you didn't have to really keep those, but you do if you're going to be a good Jewish person. So when I learned in seminary that most of the commandments, because they give you all the rest of them in the book of Leviticus, most of the commandments came from either, actually kind of word for word, from the Code of Hammurabi, my faith was discouraged. And I thought, boy, that really puts the kibosh on them coming either from a spaceship or from God. They came from Hammurabi. And yet, they still are laws that you might run a pretty good society on. And we are told that our society is based on the Ten Commandments, and kind of our morality kind of is, but our democracy is based on 10 different commandments from the Greek, and I've preached about that before, and I will again, but not today. So this morning, I'm going to talk about the first commandment, which is Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, which means in Hebrew, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, just one. That's what the Unitarian part means, one God. Unity, not Trinity. Unitarian, Universalist, one God, no hell. So if somebody says, what is Unitarian Universalist? Or as my hairdresser says, what is Unitarian Universalist? I say, one God, no hell. And people go, And then they stop talking to you. Because they figure if you don't have hell, you're not scared enough to be a good person. So nobody really knows the answer to why this is the first commandment, your God is one. But the supposition is that this is the time when humanity had evolved in its understanding of the divine, about 1550 BCE, when the Egyptians were also going to monotheism, to worship only the god Ra, and when the Jews were going to monotheism to worship only the god Adonai. And so it also could be that the Jews were surrounded by fertility religions, and those were religions where you had the male gods and the female gods, and they had to be kind of prompted to know what to do to make the earth fertile and grow. And so the people would have raucous worship where they would party very hard and show the gods what to do in order to make the stuff come up from the fields. And the Jews were trying to be set apart and not become another fertility religion, because it was very easy to kind of relax back into that. And so the oneness of God was a very important thing to remember, and so that was the first commandment. A more cynical person would say that having one God makes one set of religious professionals, so you get one message, and the people are more easily controlled with just one message and one set of religious professionals. But we're not cynical here, so. There still are people who feel that there are many gods. I was very surprised because I've been living in a bubble where the people who say God is in everything think it's just the same sacred energy, and the people who say God is has many names but is one. I thought that was kind of everybody. But I found out there's a person in my family who said, I don't want a Muslim doctor, I want a Christian doctor. Not that the Muslim doctor would not have skills, but that I want to have a doctor work on me who believes in the same God I do. And I said, does not the Muslim doctor believe in Allah, which just means God? No, Allah is a different God, a false God. So Allah is a God, another God? Yes. We watch the movies about Greek myths, and we see Zeus, and we think Zeus is kind of an action figure of a god, kind of quaint. But you know, Zeus, the Z and the D in linguistics often are interchangeable. Deus, Zeus, same word. Deus is the Latin for God. And we sing in our cantatas, Deus, and we say Deus ex machina when we're talking about a play. I don't think there's a Deus ex machina in this new Paradox Players play. I think it's mostly dancing and a nice Baptist lady getting to know a nice gay man. But Zeus and Deus are the same word. So Zeus is really another word for God, another name. God has many names. That's what most of us think. As far as you can say, this is what Unitarian Universalists think, which you can't really say that, but I just did, so there you go. To bring this to Unitarian Universalist place, let me remind you of the Emerson quote that we heard Marcia read. The gods we worship write their names on our faces. Be sure of that. And we will worship something, have no doubt of that either. We may think that our tribute is paid in secret in the dark recesses of the heart, but it will out. That which dominates our imagination and our thoughts will determine our life and character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we are worshiping, for what we are worshiping, we are becoming. What would you be willing to have tattooed on your face? Which one of your values? God is one. There's one sacred energy. I think that's what this commandment is saying. And yet, we don't have to believe that. We Unitarian Universalists might believe in many gods or many spirits or many different spirits, but most of us, I think, believe in one sacred energy with many different forms and names. And it's interesting to try to relate that to what dominates our imagination, what dominates the secret recesses of our hearts, and what do you think about all the time? Do you think about whether people are thinking well of you? If so, that is your guiding value, like your North Star. That's what you steer by, that people think well of you. Or is it that you're looking good? You know, that's another steering North Star for some people. Or is it that you have enough money, enough security? Is it that you have your freedom? That's another, some people would have freedom tattooed on their faces. I'm a truth addict, but truth without love can be mean. Destruction is necessary for life. I know as a gardener, you have to pull things up in order to plant new things, in order to give things room to grow. But destruction without love is just not inviting to life. I would suggest, as your minister, that you consider making love your guiding principle and everything else secondary to that. So when you speak the truth in love. When you have to be destructive with as much love as possible. If you're addicted to beauty, that's wonderful, but be addicted to beauty in a way that is as loving as possible. Now let's talk about love. Love and niceness are not the same thing. So sometimes love means challenge. And sometimes being loving to someone means speaking a truth that they don't really want to hear and that you don't really want to say. And you can't speak that to someone without being willing for it to be spoken also to you. That just makes me tired. The 10 Commandments were stored in a box called the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was covered with a golden slab called the mercy seat, where God was supposed to sit. And I like that because I think whatever our box of rules is, it needs to be covered by a mercy seat. See what I mean? So you have to go through mercy in order to get to the rules. Because sometimes mercy is just going to say, honey, hush. No one can tell you the rule about what is most loving. That is something that you have to feel in your heart. And the reason that we are silent together every Sunday is that your heart gets strong and clear enough to know the answer. What is loving enough? We're here together every Sunday to try to grow a smart heart, to grow a good soul, a good sturdy soul, something that knows what the most loving thing to do is. So when we come to worship, the word worship means worth Skype. It just means holding up that which is of greatest worth to us. So when somebody say, how can you call it worship? And some people don't even believe in God. You say, well, worship means holding up that which is of worth. So some people feel that their idea of God is of most worth, and other people feel that other things are of most worth. And our minister says that we should consider having love be that thing that we lift up. So as we come to worship where we lift up what is of most worth this morning, I ask you to consider what do you organize your heart around? What do you organize your thoughts around? What do you organize your life around? And what would your 10 commandments be? If you had to make 10 things you live by, what would they be? I would look forward to hearing those from you.